Hey everyone, thank you so much for being with us on Upfront in the Prophetic. So blessed that you're here. Apologize about the voice. I kind of sound like a frog, and hopefully I won't have to blow my nose because I'll sound like a foghorn. So, anyway, I'll just put myself on mute. But with us today, we have our wonderful brother from another mother, Larry Ballard, and we're going to talk about free energy and a lot of other things, guys. So, put your seatbelts on, get your pad of paper and your pen ready, and let's hit it. Are you ready? Because it's coming in hot. In Jesus' name. How are you, Larry?
I'm good. So,
Awesome.
I almost feel like in a way your audience is part of my family too. So
Amen. They
I
are.
want to open up with this. I just want to thank you guys. I know you guys have contributed to the book getting out, and I just want to make an announcement. This is hot off the press. 10 minutes ago, I got the contract in the mail for the book. So she's already said she's put me in the queue. She trusts that I'll really send her the money. So I just got to read it over and sign it. And it's probably going to be August. We should have it out by August. I'll keep you posted. We still got to get a little bit more money. We're actually a little over the halfway point, but
Wow.
I want to thank you. So now let's get on with the business of the day.
All
So I
right.
want to
Well,
put this together because I always feel a little guilty when I do this. When I do a series, two, three, 4 parts, I always feel like I have to kind of redo the first part over in case somebody's coming in that didn't see the other. So there's 4 or 5 redundant slides. I'll go over them quick, and then I want to kind of give you an idea of what I've been trying to do. So if you didn't quite catch it, you can go back and watch these other shows. We're now past the boring history. History will be inserted here and there, but we're to the point where things are happening. So we're talking solutions. So why in the world, when Trump is doing something every day and dropping another executive order out there, and they're coming after him and their courts are suing him, why am I talking about Agenda 2050, about free energy, about water? I'll tell you why. Because if they manage to create a crisis where we have a food crisis and a whole bunch of people die. Remember, Mao killed 67 million people with food and water. So
mm,
basically, we need to understand that every piece of technology we need to feed the world in abundance exists. Go back and watch these. So basically, as we go through, I'm going to be talking about water from the atmosphere, which, oh, you know what? I think if I remember, there's this book called the Bible, and he talked about something called the firmament. And I
yeah.
just look at it as a giant river in the sky. And he
Mm,
never makes any mistakes. So he created a perfect world. So he didn't want us to have desertification. He didn't want us to have people starving a third of the world and
mm,
hunger because we've got all the water we need and we can regreen the earth. Because he said basically we could regreen the gardens. And so this series is going to tell you how we're going to do that. And let's look at it this way. We got talking about war. Trump wants to bring us into an area of peace and prosperity, right? In this, you're going to see some pictures that are pretty shocking. And how can a nation have prosperity if it doesn't have food security or water security? You can't have a vibrant economy if you don't even know how you're going to feed your people.
yeah.
So basically, we've got to solve this problem. Now, here's the good news. Next week, you get a breath of fresh air. Next week, I consider myself to be an historian, but because I've got all that stuff that I crammed in these ears all these years, it makes me be a strategist. So we're going to break down what Uncle Trump is doing and what his in-game agenda is. And I'm going to tell you that you need to stay with him because the Bible says everything that be shaken will be shaken, but they're going to come at him. And if I know the people, I hate to say this, I worked in corporate America all my life. 90-day window is about what we get in this country. And if we don't have massive change, we're off to something else. We're going to have to stay the course, folks.
Yeah.
And so this next 2 or 3 shows is going to be encouraging you to understand what he's doing, understand the consequences if we stop before we get to the end, and understanding the marvels that will be before us if we stay the course. So with that, let's talk about water from the atmosphere,
All
or
right.
as God might say, water from the firmament. Here we go. Free water. So now let me ask you a question. The climate change issue. It's about carbon, right? Well, if those of you who have been following me, maybe, well, yeah, but The bigger problem, folks, is not the smog in the air. The bigger problem is the third of the world that doesn't have any food because they don't have any water. The one quintessential thing is the whole world that we can't live without is water. A guy like me who has a couple of extra pounds, I could probably go 60 days without any food with no problem. But I probably can't go more than 3 days without water before my kidneys start to shut down. So we're going to talk about what I believe is one of the biggest crises in the world, even more important than water, than war. But here's what I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to show you with facts. Water is being used as the quintessential weapon of war. That's what I want you to see. I'm going to show you exactly how this weapon is being used against us. So let's get into it. Water from the atmosphere. And this one we had before, so I'm just going to make it real simple. What are they going to do with all of us useless people? Well, they want to kill us so they can regreen the planet without having to have a whole lot of technology involved, and they can have their version of utopia. So I just say that to drive home, if we lose, they're going to kill us, no question about it. Look at what happened with COVID, and when you see what they're doing with this weapon that's creating the climate, boy, you're gonna say we really got to fight, stand up and fight. Let's go to this next picture.
And before I do
comment?
that too, yeah, in regards to Noah Yahari, horrible human. Oh my gosh. Lord Jesus, you know, you said something how they will basically fertilize the earth and they'll use us to do that. And that's what I believe you were getting at, because I believe that there was a movie that kind of depicted that.
Soil looks green.
Yes, 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 that's it. That's it. And I mean, they tell us things through, movies. So guys, just, when you watch a movie, every single movie that you watch, view it with an eye of, okay, what comms can I get out of this? What are the codes? What are they saying really? Because it makes a difference. And it also will give you a prayer point to come against it in Jesus'
Yep.
name. We have the power, and so many are not stepping into it. So it's time to step into the weapons that God has already given us.
Well, with what you said, remember, Hollywood's controlled by the global financial elite, who are our enemy. And every movie out there in the last 15 years has been predictive programming to get
Mhm.
us ready to psychologically accept some crisis that they're bringing at us, where we think it's just natural. It's just the way it's supposed to be. It's not. It's war. And I did a show about a year ago that I might actually dust off and add to and do again. It was called 50 Forms of Covert War.
Wow.
And basically the biggest one of all has to do with weather here. Let's go on to the next slide. And
All
I'm going to
right.
show you just a few pictures and we're going to break them down. This is what our world is looking like.
Hmm.
And I'm going to show you that not one of those problems is having by accident, and not one of them is solvable by what the UN claims that they are going to do to save us. So let's look at one at a time. Upper left-hand corner, that's plastic debris. Can we stop it? We could have catches on our sewers so it wouldn't run out into the oceans. That's a solution. But we still can't fix it, and I'll tell you why. All these solutions, everything relates to energy. You know why? Because the recycling business is, generally speaking, not very profitable. And so basically, there's lots and lots of kinds of plastic that they won't touch because they can't make any money. But with free energy, guess what? It's 100% recyclable. We have the technology. We have the technology to clean the air to where it's pristine, to clean the oceans to where they're pristine. It's all a matter of capitalism. If it isn't profitable, they don't do it. But with free energy, we can get rid of all the plastic. We can get rid of all the carbon, all the pollution, gone, because the issue of how much it costs is gone. We've got the technology. So that poor turtle might not be caught in that net anymore, and those skies don't look like that. And maybe you can actually see that city that's in that last picture. Now let's go down below, and we're going to break it down a little more. And this is going to lead us into understanding the weapon that they're using against us. When I was a kid, we had something called the Four Seasons.
Yeah.
And what did that mean? It mean each time of the year I could predict it's going to start raining. It's going to get warm. It's going to snow. It's going to get warm again. But now what do we have? We have snow when we shouldn't have snow. We have hot when we shouldn't have hot. Why? Because that's not our normal weather pattern. They're controlling the weather and they're directing it. They can create the magnitude of a storm anytime they want, and they can even send it on a specific trajectory to deliver its weapon of war any place they want. They can use their weapons of war, which we'll discuss in detail, to create that picture down below where we have drought, because remember, if you don't have water security and food security, you don't have national security and you have poverty. So they can create that drought, they can create that flood, they can create that hurricane, they can create that tornado, and they can send it anywhere they want, anytime. So let's just stop back and think a minute. Isn't it funny that we get these torrential downpours now just when it's time to plant the plants?
Right.
And when the crops are ready and we're ready to harvest the crops, isn't it something that those torrential downpours come and they destroy the cotton, they destroy the wheat right on cue, and it comes right to the right location. And isn't it funny that out in the Carolinas and the East Coast, that there happened to be some very valuable minerals that they wanted, but they couldn't get people to sell them to them. So this massive storm came in, and all of a sudden it was destroyed and everything was washed away. And now they get access to that. And isn't it funny that they wanted the most valuable piece of property in Hawaii, and that had a fire? That's another weapon of war from the sky. So believe it or not, we should not limit ourselves to looking at a kinetic war with bombs going off. We have to understand there are multiple forms of war that are being used against us. And literally, they can, just like I can get in my car and go down the highway and use the map and go from one city to the next, they can create that storm. They can make it however big they want and send it wherever they want, anytime they want, to do the maximum amount of damage. That's why you need to understand what's going on with the weather. It is not natural. We do not have snow in Florida in April. I mean, for example. So just look back at the weather forecast for the last year and you tell me, was it normal? I don't think so. Sure. You got a comment? You look like you want to say something.
What I was going to say is, remember too, like with those fires, even in California, those targeted fires, you notice that still those who had a blue roof, right, they weren't affected. I mean, I saw one house that was affected, but it had a blue garbage can. Come on now, that was not affected. That would have melted like lickety split, right? And it wasn't. So, I mean, and look at all the tornadoes on the East Coast that we had yesterday and last night. They are targeting, and by the name of Jesus Christ, the blood of Jesus Christ, this is coming down. And he's using Donald Trump to do it too. And us.
Well, we're very important. If we stand up and we lock arms, and in the coming weeks, I'm going to do a show that's going to tell you exactly what and how is going to bring us together, where we become an army of resistance. But right now, to your comment, let's take it just one little step further. So basically, we had some fires in California a couple of years ago, and I had some pictures, and I got one. It wasn't real clear, but it was an unbelievable tell. Here's this subdivision. The whole subdivision is burnt, and there's a row of trees all the way around the subdivision. Now, one of them is burnt, and then there's the picture of a lifetime. There's one house in the middle of the subdivision, and it's not like somebody took a knife and cut it in half.
Wow.
Half of it's gone, and the other half is staying perfectly with just a straight line down it. And Donald Trump, did you know, went out to California recently, and did you happen to catch what he said when he came back? Well, catch this. He said these fires weren't natural. He says these fires were created, and here's what he said: you don't see rims of cars melt from a fire. They don't. Just like, think what happened in 9/11 when we had all that molten metal. That was thermite. This is a laser beam. This is another one of those weapons. So we need to understand the
Mm,
flotilla of weapons that they use against us, whether it's just one. But I really want to drive home today. It is a weapon, and
mhm,
it is capable of killing
mm.
millions of people. Let's go on to the next
All right.
slide.
Okay.
And here we have just a bunch of bugs. Who cares? I don't like bugs anyway. No, not true. Not true. Basically, you got to look at the ocean and you got to look at the rainforest and you got to look at the bugs because they determine just as importantly as the water whether or not we, the species, have food to eat, but whether we live or die, because God makes everything in order. And there's a food chain. At the very bottom of that food chain in the ocean is plankton, which we're killing. And on land are the insects, which we're killing. And as we transition into free energy and into water from the atmosphere, we're going to have to use less pesticides. We'll be able to grow food in farm factories inside. We'll be able to grow food anywhere on the planet because guess what? We could put a dome in Antarctica or Antarctica in sub-zero weather, and we don't have to worry about heating it because the energy is free. We can grow the food, and guess what happens when you grow food that way? Less pesticides,
Mm,
healthier food. Basically, you can control the pest. And so, bottom line is, we've got to wake up and understand that if that little bee over there dies, we die. And the canary in the coal mine is right there showing us. And all you have to do, if you're my age, just think, well, I used to go visit my grandmother. It's 120 miles to her house. And I'd have to stop 3 times to wash off my windshield so I could see. And
with
now
all the
I
bugs.
just drove recently 2,000 miles across the country and I never had to clean my windshield once. We've literally killed 80% of the insects. So we
Wow.
got to protect the bees and we've got to get back control of another weapon that they're using against us, which is pesticides. So let's go on. Comments? These next two slides we've seen before, but I want to dig into them a little deeper. The Bible, that bottom picture says the Euphrates River will dry up and you can walk across it. Folks, go see some pictures and you'll be amazed at what the Euphrates River looks like right now. And the Colorado up above, I mean, look at those pictures. So it's not because the climate has changed. It's not because there's less water coming from the sky. It's because we're using more water because we are squandering our water supply. We're using irrigation systems that are absolutely wasteful on above ground irrigation that evaporates, and we're feeding 8 billion people. And that's the problem, not the climate. So now we're on the other side. What that means is they tell us carbon is the issue. It's a problem, but the real problem that is looming like in a giant atomic bomb is that our aquifers are drying up, and
Mm,
those red spots are showing where basically the aquifers are all but depleted. And so when that happens, and we get another little bit down the road, maybe another 5 6 years, already in the United States, the largest aquifer in our country that covers 6 states, the lower portion of it, the shallowest portion in Texas, is already dried up. And in California, I like to eat English walnuts. What am I bringing that up for? Because you can't hardly get them, and if you do get them, they're 3 4 times what they were. You know why? Because they
with,
grow in bogs like cranberries, and they
oh,
don't have enough water to flood the bogs, and so those poor people are having to come in and cut their orchards down. So, and then you go through California. I used to work out there, and I've been out a few times recently. Huge swaths of ground. That's where 90% of our vegetables are grown. And the farmland's been taken out of production because the aquifer is drying up and there's not enough water from the Colorado River. So
mm,
this is the early stages of a global food famine. But
wow.
we can solve that problem like that with the technology that I'm talking about. We can get HARP back and the other weapons that they use to create these problems. And now think about it. Now, instead of using it as a weapon of destruction, we can use it to make sure that we have the water exactly where we need it and
Mm,
exactly the right
that's
amount,
good.
that the climate works in our favor. So, folks, we're in a war, and it's not just with bombs. This is as much a weapon as any bomb they've ever dropped from any plane or any drone they've ever sent out. That's what I need you to understand. So, unless you got questions, let's hit that button and go to the next slide. So, this one kind of looks like the other one, but it's about something else. It's about desertification. So 40%, look at that map, 40% of the globe. We've increased our population from when I was born from 2 billion to 8 billion. But in the process now, 40% of our planet is in areas that were previously agreeable for agriculture have now turned into desertification. And I'm going to tell you when we get to the right slide how exactly they have done to us. That is another expression of the weather war machinery that they're using against us. So basically, we have more people and less land to grow food for them and less water. I mean, and remember, 67 million people died from starvation in China. Weather is a weapon, period. Let's go on. Comments? Oh, and by the way, one other thing I wanted to say about that, 1/3 of all the people in this planet are suffering from food shortages. 1/3, and it's getting worse. So now we're going to go and we're going to walk through, well, what could it look like and why does it look like what it looks like? So 3 in 5 children in the Middle East suffer from food poverty. Now, if we look down below, that might very possibly be some crops being grown in Iowa, here in the States. And if we look to the center, you see that split screen? That's the Sahara Desert. And what people don't know is it once was a fertile land. It has probably the best minerals in the world because remember, when you're dealing with planting crops, it's not just the decayed matter from forestation, it's also the minerals. And the Sahara Desert is absolutely abundant with minerals. And off the coast of the Sahara is the best fishing grounds in the whole world because of all the minerals that blow from the sands into the ocean, creating a beautiful, beautiful ecology for the ocean. We can regreen the Sahara Desert and we can turn it into an abundant farmland. And look what that do for Africa. Now let's go over in that top line. And whenever you've got a country like the whole Middle East and large parts of portions of China, where they have no water, where they have water insecurity, and where they have food insecurity, you don't have gleaming cities like you see down below. You have poverty. You have houses and cities that look like what you see in that upper picture. Now, when you go down to that bottom again, what that is in the middle is an actual real farm. It's considered to be the wealthiest farm in the world. And it isn't like a normal farm. It's just not rows of corn. They basically are employing every technology possible: hydroponics, aquaponics, domes, everything. We have the technology to be able to feed the world in abundance. And when you have a world, a city, a country that has food security, then you get gleaming cities like what you see in that bottom picture. Half of the world, mostly the southern hemisphere and portions of the middle and the Middle East, are purposely being kept in water and food depredation because they want to have that angst between the haves and the have-nots that can all be taken away in no time flat, folks. God does not make mistakes. Now, this one, I want to drill down into this. Ronald Reagan, I want you to look over to the left. I want you to look at that block that's green. Here's what Ronald Reagan said. Now, folks, let's don't get all up in a bunch over this climate change thing because, most of this carbon is actually coming from planets right here on the Earth. And let's go back in history and we see that we had the dinosaurs roaming around and they were bigger than any animals we have now. And the plants were huge and everything was abundant because there was 300 times more carbon in the air because of all the volcanoes. And yet the planet was healthier than it had ever been. So it's a lie to say that it's the carbon. Now, is it the pollution in the air? Yes, that's important. Now let's go. So basically what he was saying is the world, the climate naturally creates carbon as a part of the whole ecological system of the planet. Now let's go over to the other side and look at all those boxes. If you can read them, that isn't very clear. See if I can look over. You got electricity, 32% of the carbon dioxide that we create. We've got industry, 15. We've got corporations, 34. And that's in transportation. Anyway, here's the point. I don't care how many boxes we have there. If we have free energy, it's all gone. and let me break it down and give you some technology that you may not know about, and you'll see free energy and free water solves virtually every ecological problem this planet faces. Did you know there's something called a toroid? And did you know that it has the ability to use the very frequencies that God created when he made all the matter on the earth, and that it can be used to clean up radioactive waste? Did you know that there's another invention that sucks in that smog that's in our air, and out the backside of it comes purified air and not smog, not carbon dioxide? It's just a matter of having the energy to be able to run them so we can clean the water, we can clean the air, we can get rid of the contaminants that are in the air, and we can recreate the Garden of Eden, and nobody has to be in poverty, period. So everything you see here that the global elite come at us and at us and at us, we're killing the planet. We can wipe every one of those issues away. They are man-made issues, and we have a solution for a man-made solution. So this series and everything I'm going to do for the next few months is all about taking what they tell you in the news and breaking it down to identifying the problem and the solution so that we can become informed people to stand up and figure out that we've got wars that we have to fight. And this is one of the very important ones. Francine, you got any questions? You look pretty intent here.
No, just listening to what you have to say, Larry, it is pretty amazing how God is going to use all this to bring us to a place where it is kind of like a utopia. You know, I mean, things are going to be better than what they are. I know I always say this, but you know, prayer is the key. We have to keep on praying. We have to be involved. We can pray,
Yep.
but we have to engage, and that's what we're doing. So let's just go to the next one here.
Okay. Well, in case you haven't noticed from looking at me, I'm pretty old. So I'm looking at all this and I've lived it.
Oh, brother.
So back in the 1950s, and I was a teenager, a young spry kid, we had predictable weather. We really did. We had predictable weather. And we didn't have these massive storms like we have right now. So that chart shows you that in 1953, they were tracking our major weather events, and worldwide, there was a whopping 50. Wow. But then look, it starts to go up and we get in the 60s, and that's a really important time that you'll see in one of the slides. It's creeping up pretty fast. And then we go, and now what do we got? We've got 400 events, and there's not only more of them, but they're drastically more severe than anything we had in the 1950s. This is your weather manipulation, folks. This is your HARP system. This is your cloud seeding. This is what they're doing to control and manipulate the weather as a true weapon. And it all comes into the timeline for when they invented that technology. And we're going to see that. I think it's not this next slide, but the one after that. Let's go to the next slide, and I'm going to break down the genesis of how they control our weather. So first of all, onus on us. We irrigate in very, very irresponsible ways with irrigation at ground level where the water just evaporates. Over in Iran, over in Israel, it's all drip irrigation. It's all underground. It's all basically conserving every single drop. So what I think the governments in the world are going to have to do is this. We're talking solutions. We're going from globalization to deglobalization, from centralization to decentralization. We're going to have governments get involved in farming and take the money to build infrastructure that provides the farmers with the ability to irrigate in responsible ways with drip irrigation and other technologies that exist. And there's other ways that we can get water even above and beyond from the atmosphere. So that's something we have to be pushing our governments towards. And we can't buy in to that picture down below. It's all your fault, folks, because there are too many of you consuming too many of your natural resources. The world is abundant. So here, I think most of you by now probably know who that guy in that picture is. That's RFK, and he's basically on a mission to tell us how we're being poisoned, right? Well, what do you see right there? What are they doing with that picture? What did he tell us? He told us that those, oh God, I forgot what they're called. Help me. When they spray the clouds. Seeding, not seeding. What's it called?
Chemtrails.
Yeah, the chemtrails. They're full of heavy metals, right?
Yeah, they
But
are.
let's go back 100 years, and we really developed this technology 100 years ago. It's called seeding. They're basically putting ion particles in the air to basically cause rain. So they're using these two weapons together. They're seeding the clouds to bring moisture, and then they're bringing more moisture. Remember, all storms are a matter of heat, cold and air, cold and hot. You put them together, and you create weather patterns. And so what HARP can do, and I remember, think of your microwave, except now think of it as taking acres and acres and acres of lands and having the ability to direct it into a tightly focused beam or a broadly focused beam. So here's what they do. They've seeded the clouds. They've got them so they got a lot of nice moisture in them. They take the focus beam and put it up, and they make a great big hot bubble out there that's going to cause that hurricane or that tornado or that massive monsoon rain. And then what they do, they turn it into a broad beam, and they guide that sucker right across the country to wherever they want, anytime, any day, any night, the perfect storm on demand, period. That's your weapon right there. And we could be getting water from the atmosphere and have totally balanced ecology across the planet. Let's go on down. So basically, just to sum this up, our lakes, our waters, our aquifers don't need to dry up. We don't need to have food shortages. We don't need to have water shortages. All we need to do is get control of the weapons that are causing them and use it for our benefit. Let's go to the next slide. And I think this is something that most people are going to be shocked at. Remember Vietnam? Remember when we finally got out of Vietnam because we had what was it, Operation Paperclip, I think it was called, where we found out that the war, maybe that wasn't what it was called. Anyway, we found out that the war was unwinnable, and they've been dragging it out and dragging it out for what? Because it was a control mechanism. So look at this. This is Collier's magazine from the 1960s, right when the Vietnam War was right at its peak. And what does that say? Weather made to order. So already we had HARP, and we could already control the climate. And then looks at that next picture. It says Operation Popeye. And down in the center, it says geoengineering. So here's right out of the pages of history. You can go get online and you can validate everything I'm telling you. No war in the world is ever won. If you can break the supply chain of the enemy, they're going to lose. So basically, what did we do in Vietnam? We basically understood that their supplies came into Haiphong Harbor. Then they were put on mules and whatever and taken up the Ho Chi Minh Trail, this little bitty mud trail through the jungles. And so what did we do? We used HARP to create weather on demand, to create torrential downpours, to bog them down so they couldn't get their supplies through. So that was an instance where we first used HARP as a weapon of war against another nation across international boundaries. So I'm going to read this part in the middle. Top secret. Operation Popeye, a top secret weather manipulation weapon used in Vietnam War to cause torrential rains in order to flood enemy supply lines. Bam, there it is. That's what they're doing to us today, this very day. Now let's go on to the next one, and we'll break it down even a little further. So here is where I found the proof positive, like they say, the smoking gun. So look at this. So what is HARP? For those who don't know, it's High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project, i.e. microwaves. Directed energy beams is what it is. And this says all the way back. Now, we already had used this weapon in Vietnam. So we knew it was a weapon of war. So listen to what happened as a result of that sometime later in 1977. April 27, 1977, Secretary of Defense William Cohen at the DOD news briefing on April 27th on the part of the Clinton administration at the University of Georgia stated the existence of weapon systems utilizing electromagnetic energy, listen, to trigger earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and climate alterations, i.e. climate change. There it is, right out in the open, announced at a major university. Let's go on down. And then in 1977, he announced a treaty. U.S. ratified treaty agreeing not to use environmental weapons, i.e. HARP and i.e. chemtrails, Um, I got to start over. I lost my place. U.S. ratified treaty agreeing not to use environmental manipulation as a weapon of war to create earthquakes, tidal waves, volcanic eruptions, and disturb the weather across national borders. And then let's go on down. I'm going to read this whole thing. The lie behind HARP and chemtrails. What was originally called, listen to this, global warming, because the temperature was going up, or at least our models said so. Well, it didn't turn out to be that way. So they conveniently changed the name from global warming to climate change. Interesting. Change the narrative. Get caught in your lie and just change the narrative. HARP is capable of causing the increase in weather disasters that we saw in that previous slide. And chemtrails are proven to contain heavy metals harmful to humans' health. And we've seen that over and over again. Our food is poisoned. What did RFK just say? Go look in your pantry, and it's full of heavy metals. Basically, they're able to affect rainfall and cause floods. And that's why all of this weather pattern, the droughts and the floods, it's all orchestrated and manipulated. And that's why our seasons don't follow what they should be following, because they are executing this weapon upon us in the seasons in which it does the greatest amount of harm. Let's go to the next slide. And now we're going to basically dip into how this technology works. I'm going to make this one quick, and I'm going to show you some shocking slides in a couple of minutes. But basically, God is not a God who makes a single mistake. He didn't create an environment, a world that has lack. There's no reason for people to be starving to death. So water forever, for perpetuity, evaporates from the earth. And remember, our climate, our temperatures haven't changed all that much. So the water evaporates from the oceans, which is 3/4 of the planet's surface. It's up in the air. It's a river. It's basically what exactly he promised is the firmament. All we have to do is get the water out of it. And all that requires is that we change the dew point and make the water drop wherever we want. We can make it hold off, or we can make it drop. That's what HARP does. And so we can use it once we get a hold of it to make sure that we don't have these droughts, this desertification is turned around, we don't have the floods, and therefore we don't have water shortages and we don't have food shortages. We have that technology. So if we have it, why aren't we using it? Well, first of all, because what they do have, they're using as a weapon. But secondly, to do it globally, where they're not just doing it here and there as a weapon to create a storm that causes destruction. If we want to give balanced climate to the entire world, we need massive amounts of free energy. So the whole thing about them keeping energy from us for the last 200 years is changing, because guess what? Pandora's box has been opened, and we are in a race to develop AI, to develop quantum computing. And here's what it is. It's going to double or triple the energy demands for the entire world. And the grid that we have worldwide is 150 to 200 years old, and it cannot by any means accommodate that kind of an increase in energy. So I want to give you something that we're going to be talking about next week, but in more detail. This is going to bless America like you can't imagine, because we've been the innovator of the world technologically. We look at China and say, oh my God, look at all the things they invented. Yep, they're inventive, but you know where they got most of their stuff? If you want to do business in China, you got to give them their intellectual product. And basically, how many of our colleges have been infiltrated, how much of our government has been infiltrated, and how much of our technology has been stolen and taken over there. But God always prepares for his people. So guess what happened here in the United States is we were innovating this technology in the turn of the century. Our wonderful government control of the global financial elite was suppressing some 6,000 patents and keeping them from us right here in this country. And with Chevron that we've talked about before, they're about to be made available. And so guess what? China and other nations are going to be out trying to innovate. When you get to these free energy technologies, it takes 10 or 20 years to figure out how to make them work, but to implement them with AI can be done. I gave you something the last week or week before where they developed a rocket engine in 2 weeks. AI did it, 3D printed it, they tested it, it works. We've got a treasure trove of almost 6,000 innovative patents that we, America, can tap into, and we can use our AI and our technology to bring them to the market quickly. So when Donald Trump says America is going to be prosperous beyond imagination, he means it, and he knows what it's about. And that's the ace in the hole that God gave America. So let's go on.
Amen.
So we're going to do this one quick. There's my book. You've seen me. I'm on Francis a lot. If you haven't bought it, now's the time to join the army. So let's go on. And this one, I already said, we reached the halfway point, and we just got the contract on the internet just a few minutes ago. But we will need more money, but there's no rush, because basically we got 4 or 5 months to get the rest of it in. But if there's anybody out there who hasn't contributed and would care to, that would be greatly appreciated. Let's go on, because I really want to tell the story for the folks.
Okay, and then since we're all into QR codes, here's our QR code. If you want to find out more information about getskinnywithfrancine.com, if you just hit the QR code, it will show and give you all the information you need. And it's not just about weight loss or inch loss. It's about getting your whole vagus nerve and your organs working properly as well. So that is so key. Okay, so let's go to the next one.
All right. Look at these pictures, folks.
Oh my, yeah.
This is real world stuff.
Sure.
This is happening all around the world. And that's Africa, and it's happened in the Middle East. So imagine this. You're going out, if that one picture in the left, if you can see it, there's a whole herd of animals back there feeding from that water hole, and also defecating in that water hole. And they're out there getting their water out of that water hole and drinking it, full of every kind of parasite you can imagine. So imagine the health issues that these poor people have. And here they're starving to death. And look down at the bottom. There's that little bitty thing sitting there, and those nice clear glasses of water. And that wasn't outside. That's just right inside your house. There's even moisture in the air in your house. And basically, that little device can give you drinking water right here in the United States. And even here, there's an application. Think about Flint, Michigan, when they had all that lead in the pipes. If you're in a big city and you don't trust the water, or maybe, I'm not saying for sure, but there's been talk about them putting stuff in the bottled water.
Yeah.
So if you want to get your own water supply and know that you're drinking something that's not going to harm you, you can go to the store right now and buy a little water device that can give you a glass of water anytime you need it. But that doesn't solve the problems of the world, right? We've got to have, so what's the limitation? The technology is right there before you. It's energy. So we can take it to mass production, take it to scale, and generate hundreds of thousands of gallons of water to basically regreen the planet. And we have the technology to do that, because we're right on the cusp of getting the free energy that makes cleaning the environment possible. Clean out the smog out of the air, clean the plastics out of the oceans, clean everything, and bring the whole environment back to where it's pristine. And by the way, get rid of that 1/3 of the people that are starving to death, and basically have every nation of the world have parity, where basically you have food security and water security. That means you're out of poverty. We can do that, folks. But water and energy are a key component of being able to bring up the standard of living for everybody in the world. Let's go to the next one. And I think this one, if you're not following it, might shock you. 23 nations declared that they have drought emergencies. The redder it is, the worse the drought. So think of all those people we're feeding, and look at how much of the world is in trouble. And you might be surprised, because the Sahara Desert up there isn't listed. It's because it's always in drought. They didn't declare an emergency. So mostly, right. What do we got left? Yeah. We got almost North America. We're always blessed. North America, remember, we did a little science lesson previously, where the poles create cold air, cold water, comes down to the middle of the equator and goes back and circulates back up. But just like Goldilocks, there's always that perfect spot. Just like in our spiral galaxy, there's that Goldilocks spot where planets can live and people can be born. Well, it just so happens that the Goldilocks spot is the 40th latitude, and that is where the grain belts of the world are, and that's right where America, God's covenant nation, is. And on top of that, even if you're in the Goldilocks zone, if you really want to have the right kind of climate, you need a mountain or two to basically make sure you can control the weather. America is blessed. We are God's covenant nation. Now, let's go over to the other side. See those great big boxes there? They're
Hmm.
sitting right out in the scorching sun where it's probably 120 degrees in Dubai in the middle of the desert. And what are they doing there? They're feeding that factory down below that is making bottled water. They're pulling enough water to have a commercial enterprise out of the hot desert in Dubai. Tie that to the technology where we save every single drop of water, like just like they do in Israel, and we can regreen the planet. There's no need to have water insufficiency or food insufficiency. I picked this because this is the most extreme example I can find of whether even in the direst conditions, we can bring enough water out to have a commercial enterprise. Folks, it's there. The technology we need is there available for us. We just have to lock arms and stand and demand it. Comments before we go on, Francine?
No, it's coming. I do want to circle back, if I may.
You
When you
may.
were when you were talking about the whole climate change and so forth, how they changed the names. If you look back years ago, especially during that movie, The Manchurian Candidate, if you're not up on mind control, MK Ultra. Ultra, that movie really depicts it. But you see how they changed it, mind control, actually MK Ultra, to the Monarch, right? The Monarch butterfly. But that was all,
Monarch. Monarch.
yeah, Monarch, yeah. And that's, their other name for MK Ultra. So they changed the name. So once you grab a hold of it and you're like, "Oh, okay, I know what they're talking about." So then when somebody goes to look for it, it's like they change the name hoping that, they're not going to understand it. But I had to
Keep
go.
us in the dark.
Yeah, keep us in the dark. That's how they are. Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, I just had to throw that out there to you. But yeah, so the next slide,
So you
that
think maybe they brainwash us, is what you're saying.
yes, absolutely.
Mind control, manipulation. And
Yeah,
remember,
just
now
like
let's take that back.
television, right?
Let's take
Television.
it back to where, yep, television. Let's take it
Yep.
back to where I've been asking people for money for my book. Why? Because Stalin says, if you give me the first 4 years of a child's education, the seed I plant will never be
Yes.
removed. In other words, they'll be good little commies. And what do they do? I saw something last night when I was doing research.
Right.
There's one of the school districts here where the parents have petitioned to not have to expose their children to the DEI teachings with the drag queens and everything. And the school district's coming out and saying, no, we've got to present that. Well, that's at kindergarten level. So they're doing just exactly what Stalin said. They're
Right.
teaching this children to not know if they're male or female, and they're
Oh,
bringing them basically into a situation where they're good little communists. That's why it's so important that this book of mine be really well edited, because when it goes under the magnifying glass in order to get it in the schools, it'll get some real scrutiny. Anyway, back to this. So I just picked these pictures. We can build these geodesic domes in the most harshest climates imaginable, in the Arctic, in the deserts, anywhere. We can create living habitats anywhere we want. We've got the technology. And if we move over to the other side, there's technologies where we can grow food in farm factories 5 stories tall, 10 stories tall. So it's not a matter of the amount of land. You can drop one of those right in the middle of the desert. Matter of fact, I think it's Saudi Arabia is building something called the Line. Do you know what that is?
the line?
Mm-hmm.
No.
It's a city that traverses the entire, once completed, the entire distance of Saudi Arabia, and it's a closed habitat. They will have they will have everything inside of a building. You'll have your transportation in there. You'll live in there. You'll grow your food in there. So basically, a controlled environment in the
Mm,
middle of the desert to give
wow.
them plenty. And so the things we can do with habitat control these days are amazing. And that picture down below, that is absolutely doable. It's being done right now. I'm going to get off of this kind of ecological topic here for a few weeks and go over to some things that Donald Trump's doing that I think people need to know. But I'm going to come back, and in a few weeks, we're going to do something that's going to give you the details of how, in fact, we can reclaim those deserts that are being turned into unarable lands, and how we can feed the population of the world. But it all comes down to that center picture. With free energy, we can end poverty and we can usher in peace and prosperity, because every nation in the world will have water, will have food, will have a good, sound economic system. America will release that treasure trove of some 6,000 patents, develop those technologies, bringing them to scale, and there'll be no reason for there to be lack on this planet. And when there's no lack and everybody is got a decent standard of living, we're going to go exactly to where Trump wants to go, because he's ordained by God. We'll usher in a period of peace and prosperity. But more than you know, it hinges around free energy. Let's go on down. And God comes and talks to people every once in a while. He talks to me once in a while. And apparently he talked to the Hopi Indians way, way back. And they drew this petroglyph on a rock, and it said, one of the things that we were shown was an extinction event. And the other is that we get our act together and we go on and on and on and on and on. And folks, we're right at that tipping point right now. And I want to go backwards, and I want to show you basically just it's more important than you think it is. Because I'm just announcing to you that we've got all this marvelous technology that we can have pretty quickly and bring it to bear. Well, guess what? We're on a tipping point, and let me explain a little science here again. So we talked about how the weather patterns are created and so forth. Well, we've got something called the conveyor belt, where this basically the water circulates from the North and South Pole to the center, and that creates the weather patterns and the jet streams and so forth. Well, if the temperature gradient changes enough, that conveyor belt stops. And we've seen this in history. Basically, we go into an ice age, and the last one lasted 10,000 years. We are getting very close to creating a situation where that conveyor belt stops. But the global elite think they're so smart, they can take it to the very brink. So here's what I want to impose upon you. We get those technologies. Let's say, thanks to Donald Trump, we get free energy out the door, and we can start implementing it in the next year. And we can start phasing it in. It isn't going to come in as quick as you think. If we had been given that technology when it was new, we could have gone from the horseless carriage to to automobiles that didn't have to have any input. But now we've got a $10 trillion grid that we can't collapse immediately. So the technologies that are coming will be able to be implemented quickly in third world countries, but it's going to take probably 15 years to implement them throughout the industrialized portion of the world. So we got 15 more years, folks, where that time bomb is sitting there, and we've got to get things going now. So before I leave this slide, I want to impress upon you, there is a greater amount of urgency than you might think. Even though we have the technology, it took us, what, 50 years to get this climate, or 100 years to get it in the situation it's in? It's not going to be fixed in a month or a week or a year or 10 years. We've got to act now. Let's go to the next slide. And I'm going to say that I laugh sometimes when I come across some of these things. I just think I showed you how America is located in that Goldilocks zone, right? Where just the climate's just perfect. Well, when you're being manipulated by the global financial elite, I just love some of the things that I come up with. So China became the world's dominant economic power for creating solar panels and wind and lithium. And all three of those technologies are dead on arrival.
Right.
None of them solve any of the problems. Remember, I just did a show a couple of weeks ago on the 2050 agenda, and how not one of the things that they have in there can be accomplished without free energy. And we've just got the crack in the door that's going to give us the free energy. Tesla is just himself announced EVs are dead. He went to Japan, and Toyota has developed a car. It's not the solution, but it opens the door that can run on hydrogen. It's just not hydrogen on demand, but basically that's going to in and of itself kill the EV market. So remember, every one of these quote unquote clean energy technologies ultimately tie back to the grid, and the grid is running on 18th century technology. I don't care whether it's a nuclear power plant, it's basically steam. If it's a coal belching, carbon pollution power plant, we're still tied to the grid. Doesn't solve a single solitary problem, but free energy from the ether basically can allow us to clean up the environment and never pollute it again. But it's going to take 10, 15 years. But here's the beauty. I don't believe, and we're going to touch on this in detail next week, that God intends for this reset of the global financial elite to give global power to any communist nation. He wants his harvest of souls, and the only major nation out there that fits the direction that God wants to take the world is in America. America is the nation that God ordained to lead the world. And so China has just walked into a trap where they have spent massive amounts of money on these three technologies, and all that money is going to be basically for nothing. And now they found thorium, and they're going to put a lot of their energy on thorium production. And what is that? Thorium is another radioactive material, just not as hot as uranium. So they're saying, "Oh, we ain't got enough energy to run our country for 1,000 years or more," but it still creates radioactivity. It isn't subject to the meltdowns, but it all keeps them connected to the grid. So the energy solutions that are coming out that the world needs. So that's going to be another, in my opinion, dry hole. They're building nuclear power plants now. We're going to get absolutely free energy devices that can be put in your home, that can be commercialized and put in factories, that can do unbelievable things to transition the world. So I think it's just wonderful when I come across these kind of things and I say, God misdirected the enemy. So at any rate, I diverse. So let's go on. And here we're going to look at real quickly why the lithium battery is dead upon arrival. So over in the upper right, you see that what you see there are lithium fields where they bring that stuff out. It's nasty to mine, and it has to sit there and evaporate. And when the batteries go bad, they go into the landfills and they're highly toxic. And remember now, this is marketed as a clean energy device, cleaning up the carbon in our air. Let me look at this over here. 4 tons of CO2 is required to produce a single lithium battery, and it still has to be connected to the grid.
Wow.
So, folks, how in the world is that considered to be a clean energy?
Mm.
But energy from the atmosphere, water from the atmosphere, that's clean. Water from the ether, energy from the ether, that's clean. And when I feel bad for him, when Tesla came back from his visit to Toyota,
Oh,
he
yeah.
said literally, the EV market is dead. Well, I think he's pretty smart, and here's what I think is going to happen. He's still got those factories that are amazing that are run by AI. He'll just transition into one of these new technologies, and he'll come out roaring because Donald J. Trump is committed to controlling what? The automobile industry. And we've got all those patents. And I believe all he has to do is just take a deep breath and wait. And he'll take his batteries out of those cars and he'll put free energy devices in. And instead of being $100,000, there'll probably be something more like $20,000.
Yeah.
Just keep the faith, folks. God's on our side. Let's go to the next slide, if you would. You went backwards, going one more down. We'll get back in sync. Okay. And we talked about this before, just in case you didn't look. The lost 100 years, the links down below, that will tell you about all the technologies that are suppressed, that are part of the 6,000 patents that we are about to get access to. And that movie over there called Thrive, that basically tells you that the breakthroughs that we're making on energy are right at the doorstep. And he talks in particular about one that I think is going to be the first truly free energy device that comes out. And when one comes out, They can no longer call it conspiracy theory. They can say it breaks the laws of thermodynamics. You cannot have more energy come out than you put in. That's bunk. That's not what they're doing. They're tapping into a completely different energy source that's run off of the basic ether of the planet. So if you want to get a little deeper than I've done, go watch one of these two videos or both of them. We're almost done, Francine. You've hung in there again. So basically, if we get these technologies, we're going to have an opportunity, if we don't give up, if we stand united, where we can have peace and prosperity, and we'll all come about creating equality for people. Nobody who starves, nobody who's in poverty. We'll get rid of all of that. And then they will not be able to cause a single solitary false flag event to drive us into a war, because we'll be, as I might say naively, happy campers. So peace and prosperity is just around the corner. Let's go on down, and we're going to sum this up. When I said it's going to take time, here it is. In Africa and other third world countries, they didn't go from phones to landlines. They went from phones to these little things, and they went to banking online. And now they're going to be able to take all this technology, and they'll get it first, because Chikabutu from that movie Thrive has a generator that has been tested, and the people who did that documentary said it works like a charm. Put that sucker out in the middle of the jungle and power 300 homes without a grid, without any input, without anything. And what we're going to find is that Africa then can tap into its natural resources. And so third world nations are going to very quickly industrialize, because they're not going to have to spend trillions or billions laying conventional grids. And we in the first world countries, we'll be able to bring that technology out. You can have a water purifier that gives you water in your kitchen sink, and we can have some of these technologies, but the mass introduction is going to take years, because otherwise we'll completely crash our economies. So basically it's coming, but it's going to take time.
Right.
And here's a prediction I make. Multi-trillion-dollar corporations will have to be phased out in order to bring the technology in. But this is my little prediction, and I could be wrong. This is no facts associated with this. This is my opinion. I believe Donald Trump's pretty shrewd, and he's offering, instead of green cards, gold cards, which are being purchased by wealthy people, many of which probably own their own companies. And he's saying to anybody who will bring $1 billion or more in to build a factory, he'll give you a fast road to getting all your permits issued and getting in. So here's what I think Mr. Donald Trump will do. If he identifies the technology that he thinks we need to stay away from China, that we need in order to have America be at the top of the food chain, literally speaking, I think what he's going to do is he's going to reach into those factories if he considers it to be strategically significant, and they're going to get the free energy up front. So that we can always stay ahead of the curves. It won't come out to the residential consumer like you and I, but it will be selectively chosen wherever it needs to go to make sure America is always and forever the leading power in the world. So with that, I like to end on good news. We did this before. I'm probably going to use this again. Go one more. And sunshine and roses, basically a family of people who surrender to God, who understand what peace and prosperity is. And basically that's the future that's on the horizon for us. So
Amen.
I don't want to spend, I want to spend a little time on this. This is an introduction to the next set of series we're going to do. So I'm just going to read this real quick, and then we're going to dive into it over the next couple of weeks. This is solving the world's problems right here. It's so simple, folks. Remember, I think what God gave me is the ability to take the complex and make it simple. So this is happening before our eyes, and we're going to break it down. We're going from globalization to governmental decentralization. We're going to trade decentralization so they can't control and keep away from us the necessities of life. We're going to monetary decentralization so they can't use money as a weapon. We're going to wellness instead of a system that's based on making us sick. We're going to get control of our time and our life so we can develop morality and we can have spiritual growth and development, what God wants, which brings in and ushers in the harvest of souls. Then we go down below and we're going to get free energy, which solves all those problems we've been talking about. And then the water and the food and the financial security are all taken care of. And then we go down to shared resources and development. So what's that? We've been existing in a world that hoards technology, that basically tells us that there's a shortage of everything. God didn't make a world short of anything. And so we're going to basically be able to put research and development and share it and put resources on every continent and have strategically significant technologies not just reside in one or two places, but multiple places. We'll break the ability of them to control the supply chain, to create shortages, to drive prices, to basically create lack, and we'll be able to create parity and stability around the world. And we'll be able to go, a whole thing about the whole Green Deal is you folks out there, there's so many of you, you're consuming our natural resources too fast. So this whole Green Deal is about sustainability. No, it's not. It's about controlling and killing us. But we have the ability to develop products that will last a lifetime. And that solves the whole issue of resource sustainability. Plus, with the technologies that are coming, when we truly get into frequency, for those who follow Tesla and Einstein and so forth, we're about to break into the periodic table. When we get into the true science of frequency, there will be several new elements that will be on the periodic table, and we are going to have some amazing technology that comes out of that as well, folks. The horizon is beautiful. And global parity will bring equality, peace, and prosperity, and basically non-aggression. So that's what we're going to talk about in the next couple of weeks. And there truly are, when it's all said and done, simple solutions. But at the key of it all is energy. That's why I've spent all this time on water and on energy and exposing the lies of what the global financial elite have done in order to keep us in poverty and in lack. But that whole system that basically runs around keeping us in lack is going to go away. And since you guys have been so great about giving me the money, I'm going to make this quick. Just keep going. I just want to stop on one of these 4 slides.
I did
Going
want to
down.
say
Oh,
to Valerie, who sewed some money for you, and she sent it to me, so we're going to get that off to you, Larry. But she really believes in what you're doing and watches you all the time. So I wanted to make mention that.
thank you, Valerie. Well, and I'll tell you something that I thought about doing, but I decided not to. I've several times thanked the people who've given, but when you send the money into PayPal, it gives me your name. I don't have your contact information, but I was a little hesitant to read the names of people who have sent money. But I just want you to know this was the hardest thing I've ever done. I've never asked for money. I don't have advertisers. I don't have donations, but this book needed to get out and I didn't have an extra $13,000 laying around. So a sincere thank you to all of you. So let's get through this begging thing real quick. So thank you again. You've sent in the money. We're now even higher than this. We're approaching 9,000. Keep going. Keep going. If you want to send some money, just click on one of those QR codes. But I do want you to do this. This book is coming out. It's the sequel to the first book. The first book was Liberty Crusade, The Fight to Save the Free World. It's every bit as pertinent as it was the day it was written. But this one is coming out, hopefully, to go into the school system. If you want to take a screenshot of this, there's 14 chapters, and you'll see just exactly what's in this. And there's a mother load of information. And that back jacket will tell you what the book is all about. So sometime in the next few weeks, when the publisher gives me the green light, I'll be telling you that this book can be purchased in advance. So not yet, we're not quite ready, but when she gives me the green light, if you want to buy it and buy it early, it'll be available. So with that, I just want to say thank you. And basically what I'm doing this for is for the kids. We have to get back control of the education system. And it's crucial that we stop putting out communism that end up coming out our universities and being our enemies. So with that, we've survived another show, and next week we're going to go into the Donald Trump agenda. And what we're going to do is I think I have the ability to do things that other people don't do. They report the news. Oh, he signed this executive order today, and that executive order, and that executive order. But because I follow God, because I follow history, because I follow geopolitical events, because I have an exceptional memory that God gave me, I think I'm good at putting puzzle pieces together. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look into the mind of Donald Trump, and we're going to see where that foxy guy is going to go with his brilliant mind and with his ability to play 5G chess. And we're going to see what exactly he's doing. And we're going to understand we better darn well stand up and keep behind him. It's going to get bumpy if we give up. The worst thing you can do, this is Sun Tzu, if you engage in a battle, you have to know going in that you're going to win. And I'm going to tell you, every move that Donald Trump has made that people are thinking is absurd and stupid, he has it calculated to the last nth degree, and we have won. We just have to stay the course. So I'm going to take you, I hope, into an analysis of Donald Trump's brain and the end game that he's trying to accomplish. And he's going to win. He's already got it all figured out. With
Oh
that,
yeah.
that's all I got.
Well, that's all you got.
That's all I
Well,
got.
well, that was good. It was really good. Before the broadcast when we went live, um, just talking about getting into the head of Donald Trump and some of the things that you shared is going to be very interesting. And a lot of people right now that, they voted for President Trump and they don't understand what's really going on behind the scenes and why he's doing what he's doing. But there is a strategy there, and it's a good one. So when you can tap into that, yeah, you feel okay. God's got this, and He's instructing our president, and so we rest in that. We rest in Him.
Well, let me give you one idea. I forget the word that I used, but let me tell you, the first key to getting into his head is understanding the art of the game.
Mhm.
And here's I want to tell you what he does so you can think. People get all crazy. He's nuts. He wants to make Canada the 51st state. He has no more intention of making Canada the 51st state than I do of going to Mars. But what does he do? He's this measured guy who says, if I come in and say, we've got some relationships with Canada that need to be fixed, boring, I'm asleep. But if he says, so he basically baits everybody. If
Yes.
he says, we're going to make Canada the 51st state, everybody gets all up in arms. And guess what? He's just taken over the news cycle, and he's forced a topic that he wants to be discussed to come into the news cycle and to be given a real look. That's what Trump does. So don't get your shorts in a ringer because you think
Yeah.
he's ridiculous and the things that he's saying are impossible. It's a calculation to just get the spotlight on what he wants to talk about. And then he drives down to what he really wanted. He never wants the absurd thing he asked for, but he wants them to understand, if you don't give me what I really want, there will be consequences.
Yes,
So
exactly.
we're going to dissect, if I can, the mind of a genius.
Yes. It's going to be fun. It's going to be wild. So hop on, guys. Hop on. Well, I want to thank you so much for being with us today, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And Larry, it's always been a pleasure. Thank you for coming
Thank you.
aboard and sharing what God has implanted in that brain of yours.
And all of those people who sent me $1 or two, I don't care if it was $100 or 10 cents. Thank
Yeah.
you. I appreciate it.
Amen. Amen. Well, they love you, Larry. So with
We're gonna
that,
have, we're gonna have fun next week, folks. Don't miss this one.
yeah. Yeah, it's
Um,
it's gonna
I
be
I well, I spent close to 100 hours putting the research together to do that one show next week, 1 hour show.
wow.
But it was that important that I thought that we needed to wake the people up, because with the amount of pressure that's coming against us,
Mm,
we have to understand it. He's really got it all worked out.
yeah, you
We
do.
just have to stay in there with him. And if we don't abandon him, he'll win, period. He'll win.
Amen.
So
We got to
we're going
say,
to get into the mind of a genius next time.
all
And
right.
I may not be able to quite dive really down that channel because he's a lot smarter than me, but he's given me some cues that I think we can follow. So let's go
Awesome.
have some fun next week.
Forward to it. All right. All right. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for joining us on Upfront in the Prophetic. We love you. Bless you all. Bless you, Larry.
Bless you.
Woohoo. All righty.